Good evening, dear listener. Welcome to a place where the stars twinkle a little brighter, the moon smiles gently above, and time slows down just enough for your heart and mind to rest. Tonight, you're invited to take a step away from the noise and haste of everyday life and enter a realm of wonder. Dreams and timeless tales. For the next few hours, we will travel together through magical forests, moonlit villages, underwater kingdoms, and enchanted gardens. These are not just bedtime stories. They are keys to open the doors of your imagination. Inspired by the works of Hans Christian Andersen, one of the most beloved storytellers in the world, this collection is crafted to help you unwind, relax, and drift softly into a peaceful slumber. Andersen once said, "Life itself is the most wonderful fairy tale." His stories remind us that the simplest moments can hold the deepest magic, and that even the smallest creatures, like a swallow or a silverfish, can carry great wisdom and kindness. We begin with The Moonlight Willow, a gentle tale of a tree that remembers the stars and shares secrets with the night. Then we'll float through the skies in The Little Clockmaker and the Sleepy Stars, where a boy with a quiet gift teaches the stars how to dream again. Later, we'll follow the glowing path of The Silver Fish and the Lantern of Wishes, a story that swims beneath the waves to find the meaning of true hope. And after a moment of calm, we'll meet an extraordinary young artist in The Princess Who Painted Dreams, who paints her hopes into the skies of her kingdom. Finally, we'll walk slowly into the moon-kissed petals of the night garden of whispering flowers, where every bloom has a memory to share, and the wind carries stories that only those who listen can hear. Between each story, we'll take gentle pauses, intermissions that give your mind time to rest, your body time to breathe, and your dreams time to bloom. Find a cozy spot. Maybe you're already wrapped in a blanket, lying in bed, or resting on your favorite chair. Dim the lights. Let the soft glow of your room feel like a lantern guiding you into dreamland. Close your eyes if you wish. Breathe slowly. Feel the day fall away. These stories are not just for children. They are for the dreamers of all ages, for those who believe in the quiet power of kindness, the beauty of a good heart, and the magic that lives in the spaces between words. As the stories unfold, let your mind wander. You might find yourself walking among willows, talking to sleepy stars, or floating down streams made of silver light. And that's exactly what this moment is for. A pause, a lull, a gentle ride into the quiet corners of your soul. So, settle in. Let the world wait, and let the stories begin. The Little Match Girl. Once upon a time, on the final evening of the year, as the last sunbeams slipped beneath the cold rooftops of a snow-covered city, a little girl wandered through the streets alone. The snow was falling thick and soft, like whispers from the clouds above. The wind danced sharply between the narrow alleys, tugging at the girl's thin shawl and chilling her tiny bare feet, which had turned red from the cold. She had lost her slippers long ago, one in the snow, the other taken by a laughing boy who thought it would make a fine cradle for his pet kitten. She clutched her small apron to her chest. Inside it were bundles of matches. She had spent the entire day trying to sell them. Matches, fine matches! But no one had stopped to listen. People hurried past her, their boots crunching against the frozen ground. Their arms full of parcels and their hearts full of holiday joy. The city lights twinkled in the distance, windows glowing with warmth and laughter. Through frosted glass panes, she could see families gathering around tables, fires crackling in hearths, and hands passing plates piled high with food. But no one noticed the girl. No one saw her trembling. No one heard the quiet growl of her stomach. She was afraid to go home. Not because her home was far, no, it was nearby. But it was cold, even colder than the street, with only a broken roof above and a thin blanket that let the wind pass through like a ghost. Her father would be angry too. She hadn't sold a single match, not one. So she kept walking, her little fingers stiff and blue, until she found a corner between two tall houses where the wind was not quite so cruel. She curled herself up and tried to tuck her feet beneath her, but the cold crept in like a shadow. Her teeth chattered. She looked down at her bundle of matches. Would it hurt to light just one? Just for a moment? Just to feel a little warmth? Her fingers fumbled as she pulled one out and struck it against the wall. Psst! A golden flame burst to life. The light danced like a tiny spirit, casting warm colors on the snowy wall. It felt like the sun had kissed her fingers. She held it close, and suddenly she wasn't cold anymore. No, she was warm, sitting in front of a beautiful fireplace with red bricks, a glowing fire, and soft pillows. The flames seemed to whisper to her, their flickers like lullabies. But then the flame sputtered, and it was gone. The cold rushed back like a wave, so she struck another match. Psst. This time she saw a table. Oh, what a table it was! It stretched before her like a dream, covered in a white tablecloth. Roast goose, apples, golden potatoes, and even a warm bowl of soup waited for her. She reached out. She could smell it, rich, savory, real. But just as her fingers neared the food, the match burned out. Darkness again. The wind howled like a distant wolf. She struck a third. Psst! This time, she wasn't alone. A Christmas tree shimmered before her, taller than any she had ever seen. The branches sparkled with candles, glass ornaments, and ribbons. Her eyes filled with wonder, and then she saw her grandmother, her dear, kind grandmother, the only person who had ever loved her. Her face was gentle, glowing with joy. Her arms were open. "Grandmother!" The little girl cried. She struck another match. Then another. She struck all of them, afraid the vision would disappear. One by one, the matches burst to life. She laughed as she saw her grandmother clearer and clearer. She felt arms wrap around her, warm, safe, loved. The cold was gone. The snow disappeared. She was flying high above the rooftops, through the stars, with her grandmother holding her close. They were going somewhere beautiful, where there was no hunger, no cold, no sadness, and they didn't come back. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the snow-covered city. Its golden light touched the rooftops and spilled into the alleyways. People began to stir. A few children came running, chasing each other through the snow, and there, in the corner between two houses, they saw the little girl. She sat quietly, leaning against the wall, her face tilted toward the sky. Her cheeks were pale, but she smiled gently. In her lap were the remains of burnt matches, dozens of them. She must have been trying to keep warm, one woman said, shaking her head sadly. But no one knew what she had truly seen. No one knew that, in her final moments, she had been lifted beyond hunger, beyond frost, beyond the loneliness of the world. No one knew that she had gone to a place of light and warmth, carried by love. Even in the darkest of nights, hope can flicker like a match. The smallest light, the gentlest dream, can carry the soul to a place far beyond pain. We never know the battles someone is fighting, and we never know how much a little warmth, a little kindness could mean. The Ugly Duckling. Once upon a time, in the heart of a green valley, there lay a pond so still and so peaceful that the tall reeds swayed as if they were whispering secrets only the wind could understand. Dragonflies skimmed across the water like tiny shimmering jewels, and the air was alive with the gentle chorus of frogs and songbirds. At the very edge of this pond, tucked safely between the reeds, a mother duck sat patiently upon her nest. Day after day she waited, warming her eggs beneath her soft feathers. She rocked them gently and hummed to herself, dreaming of the day when her babies would tumble out and fill the pond with laughter. Her patience was rewarded one sunny morning. As the golden light of dawn stretched across the water, the eggs began to stir. Crack, crack, crack! One after another the eggs split open, and fluffy little ducklings tumbled out, chirping merrily, their yellow feathers glowing in the light. The mother duck quacked proudly, her heart swelling with joy, but one egg still lay unbroken. It was larger than the others with a harder shell. It rocked and shook until, with a sharp crack, it finally broke open. Out stumbled a little bird, but unlike the others, his feathers were not golden at all. They were gray, dull, and patchy. His neck was longer, his beak a little sharper, and his steps awkward. The other ducklings stopped their chirping. They tilted their heads, whispering among themselves. "Why does he look so strange?" one giggled. "He doesn't look like us at all," another snickered. The mother duck, though puzzled, tucked him close with the others. "He may look different," she thought, "but he is still my child." At first, the little gray duckling tried his best to fit in. He waddled behind his brothers and sisters, paddled after them in the pond, and tried to chirp like they did. But no matter what he did, they pushed him aside. When he tried to join their games, they snapped at him. When he splashed happily in the water, they swam away, laughing. It wasn't only his siblings. The farm animals at the pond's edge seemed to notice, too. The hens clucked and shook their heads. The rooster crowed mockingly. Even the farm cat hissed whenever he came too close. "You don't belong here," the animals sneered. "You are too ugly, too strange, too different." The little duckling lowered his head, his heart heavy with shame. Day by day, the pond that had once seemed so beautiful now felt cold and unwelcoming. One night, when the moon rose high and silver light rippled across the water, the little duckling lay awake, listening to the laughter of his brothers and sisters as they slept. He felt a pain so deep in his heart that tears rolled down his cheeks. Quietly, he slipped away. He waddled through the reeds, his small feet leaving trails in the dew-covered grass. The moon seemed to follow him, a lonely companion in the night sky. "Perhaps somewhere else," he whispered to himself. "There is a place where I belong." The duckling wandered far from the pond. He crossed meadows and fields until he reached a forest. The trees stood tall and ancient, their branches arching like the roof of a cathedral. Fireflies danced like tiny lanterns lighting his path. Crickets sang their evening songs, and the air was filled with the smell of damp moss and wildflowers. Perched on a high branch was an old owl with golden eyes that gleamed in the moonlight. The owl blinked slowly, studying the little duckling. "Why do you look so sad, little one?" asked the owl in a deep, echoing voice. The duckling sighed, his voice trembling. "Everyone says I do not belong. I am too different. Too ugly," the owl tilted his head. "Not every path is meant for everyone. Sometimes the loneliest roads lead to the brightest skies." The duckling didn't understand the words, but the kindness in them gave his heart a spark of warmth. He thanked the owl and continued on his way. As the days grew shorter, the forest became harsher. Autumn leaves fell, covering the earth in a blanket of gold. Then came winter. Snowflakes drifted down from the sky, silent and cold, covering the ground in silver. The rivers froze. The pond he had once called home lay hidden beneath thick ice. The little duckling shivered. His gray feathers were thin against the cruel wind. He tried to tuck himself beneath bushes, tried to hide in hollow logs, but the cold crept in everywhere. One night, weak and trembling, he collapsed by the edge of a frozen stream. His eyes fluttered shut. He thought perhaps this was the end, but footsteps approached. A kind farmer's children spotted him. Their eyes widened in pity. "Oh, the poor bird," one cried. "Bring him home," said another. They wrapped him in a warm blanket and carried him gently to their cottage. By the fire they gave him crumbs of bread and drops of warm milk. For the first time in many months, the duckling felt warmth, not just on his body, but in his heart. He stayed with them through the worst of the winter. Their laughter filled the house, and he watched the flames flicker, dreaming of a day when he too might be happy. But deep down, he knew he did not belong here either. When spring arrived, he quietly slipped away again, carried by a longing he could not yet name. The world changed with spring. Snow melted, rivers ran clear, and flowers stretched their heads to the sun. The duckling wandered until he reached a lake he had never seen before. The water sparkled like glass. Sunlight danced upon its surface. And there, gliding across the water with grace and beauty, were creatures unlike any he had ever seen. They were swans. Their feathers were as white as snow, their necks long and elegant, their wings strong and proud. The duckling's breath caught. He had never seen anything so beautiful. "They are so graceful," he whispered. "So perfect. But I dare not go near. They will surely laugh at me too." Yet something pulled him closer. Heart pounding, he lowered his head toward the water's edge. And there, reflected at him, was not the clumsy gray creature he had always seen. It was a swan, tall, elegant, and shining white. The duckling gasped. He spread his wings, and they stretched wider, stronger, more radiant than he had ever imagined. He stepped into the lake, trembling with fear. But instead of mocking him, the swans surrounded him gently. "Welcome, brother," they whispered. "You are one of us." At last the ugly duckling understood. He had never been ugly at all. He had been a swan all along, waiting for his time to shine. That evening, as the sun set and the sky filled with stars, the young swan drifted across the lake. The water cradled him. The night air wrapped him in peace. For the first time in his life, he felt whole. He felt beautiful. He felt at home. Sometimes the world may not see your beauty right away. Sometimes you cannot even see it yourself. But your time will come. Be patient, little one, and believe, for what is hidden today may shine tomorrow. The stars twinkled above, the lake shimmered below, and the once ugly duckling, now a radiant swan, closed his eyes and rested at last. The Snow Queen. Once upon a time, in a quiet village nestled beside a frozen lake, there lived two dear friends, Gerda and Kai. They were not siblings by blood, but by heart. Every day, no matter the season, they played together in the gardens, picked flowers in the spring, and skated across the ice in winter. Gerda was warm-hearted, curious, and kind. Kai was clever and brave, with eyes like the clear blue sky after snowfall. One evening, as snowflakes twirled gently from the clouds like falling stars, the two friends sat by the window, watching the flakes melt on the glass. Gerda told a story she had heard from her grandmother about the mysterious Snow Queen, who lived far away in a glittering palace made of ice and light. It was said that she could turn hearts cold with a single kiss. Kai laughed. She's just a tale to scare children. Snowflakes are nothing but frozen water. But that very night the snow swirled harder. A sharp wind howled through the village. Something strange was in the air, a sliver of enchanted glass from the Snow Queen's mirror, a mirror that twisted truth into ugliness, was carried on the wind. It drifted through the open window and entered Kai's eye. He blinked. Suddenly the world looked different. The flowers seemed wilted. Gerda's laughter sounded foolish, and the warmth in his heart was gone. The very next morning, Kai didn't meet Gerda at the gate. Instead, he sneered at her flowers, teased the other children, and finally, without a word, vanished into the snow-covered streets. Days passed. Then weeks. No one had seen him, but Gerda never stopped believing. They say he drowned in the river, the villagers whispered. But she shook her head. I would know. He's alive. So she set out with only a cloak, a loaf of bread, and the strength of love in her heart. First, she met a talking crow who told her of a boy in a palace. Perhaps her Kai? He guided her to a castle where a kind prince and princess lived. They gave Gerda warm clothes, boots, and a golden carriage to continue her journey. In the deep forest, she was captured by robbers but befriended a wild girl who rode reindeer and wore feathers in her hair. The Snow Queen lives far to the north, the girl said, where the northern lights dance and everything sleeps beneath the ice. Take my reindeer. He'll take you there. The reindeer galloped across frozen lands, through the sharp winds and shimmering skies. Gerda's cheeks were red, her fingers stiff, but her heart stayed warm, and finally, they reached it. The palace of the Snow Queen. It glittered like a dream sculpted from frost. Towers spiraled into the night sky. The wind whispered through the ice like a lullaby sung by the stars. Inside, in the center of the great crystal hall, sat Kai, still, cold. His eyes stared ahead, blank and unseeing. Before him were pieces of ice, which he kept arranging into shapes, over and over. The queen had promised that if he could spell the word eternity, she would set him free, but his heart was frozen, and he could not remember the word. Gerda stepped forward. Kai, she whispered, I found you. He did not move. She came closer. It's me, Gerda! Still nothing, and so she knelt beside him, her hands trembling, her eyes full. She began to cry. Her warm tears fell onto his chest. Like drops of sunlight, one tear, just one, slipped into his heart and melted the ice. Kai gasped. He blinked. He turned and saw her. Gerda, he whispered, his voice soft with wonder. And as his tears joined hers, the sliver of glass slipped from his eye, vanishing into the air like snow under the sun. The spell was broken. Together they embraced. The wind around them changed. The frost softened. Even the Snow Queen's magic could not withstand the strength of their love. The reindeer carried them home, through forests beginning to thaw, across rivers whose ice was starting to crack and flow. And when they reached their village, spring had come. Love does not always roar like thunder. Sometimes it moves like a whisper, soft, steady, and strong. Gerda's love was not loud, but it traveled across kingdoms of ice and faced the coldest magic in the world. In life, there may be moments when people seem lost. Hearts may grow cold, but love, kindness, and persistence can thaw even the deepest frost. This is a story of courage, not from swords or fire, but from care, memory, and never giving up. So as you lie here tonight, think of someone you care about. Send them warmth through your thoughts, just like Gerda did. The Emperor's New Clothes. Once upon a time, in a kingdom filled with gardens, grand fountains, and golden bells that rang every hour, there lived an emperor unlike any other. He was not cruel. He was not wise. He was not even particularly busy, but oh, he loved clothes more than ruling, more than reading, more than the people. Each morning, while his ministers prepared important papers and the guards opened the palace gates, the emperor stood before a mirror the size of a door, deciding what to wear for breakfast. He had velvet coats with ruby buttons, silk capes that shimmered like moonlight, shoes with diamond buckles, and hats. Oh, the hats! Tall, wide, feathered, curled, looped. His closet was not a room. It was a hallway. The townsfolk often joked, "The emperor changes more clothes than he makes decisions." And perhaps that was true. One sunny morning, while doves danced above the castle walls, two strangers arrived in the city. They wore dark cloaks and carried mysterious trunks filled with glimmering threads. They called themselves master weavers and whispered of a magical cloth, a fabric so fine, so rare that only the wise could see it. Yes, one said, only those with true intelligence and virtue will see our creations. Fools and unworthy souls will see nothing at all. The emperor's ears perked. A fabric visible only to the wise? He gasped. I must have it. And so the weavers were welcomed into the royal palace and given the finest chamber in which to work. They asked for gold thread, silver thread, silk, and precious gems, all of which they carefully tucked away into their bags. And then they began to work, but in truth their looms were empty. Day after day they pretended to weave. They hummed and cut and stitched. Invisible air. Soon the emperor grew curious. I shall send my most trusted minister to check the progress, he declared. The minister bowed and entered the chamber. He saw nothing. No clothes, no thread, no shimmer, but he panicked. If I say I see nothing, they'll think I'm a fool. So he smiled nervously and said, Magnificent, stunning craftsmanship. The weavers nodded and showed him their designs, pointing to the air. Next, a second advisor was sent, and he too saw nothing. But he praised the weavers even more. Such detail. Such color. Truly, the emperor will shine like the stars. Word spread. The kingdom buzzed with excitement. Everyone whispered of the magic cloth, how only the wise could see it. At last, the weavers announced, The garments are ready. With great ceremony, they held up nothing. But the emperor, eager to prove his wisdom, gasped in delight. Exquisite, he cried. They helped him dress, lifting air over his arms, smoothing invisible sleeves, brushing imaginary hems. Then they said, Your Majesty, would you like to show your people? Of course he would, and so a royal parade was declared. The streets were lined. Children clapped. Musicians played, and out walked the emperor, wearing nothing at all. The crowd stared in stunned silence. Each person thought, Surely I must see it. If I don't, am I foolish? So they cheered, they waved, they bowed, until suddenly a small voice cried out, But he isn't wearing anything! A child, a little girl on her father's shoulders. The crowd gasped. Then one person laughed, then another, and soon the whole street was roaring. The emperor paused. He blushed. He blinked. He realized. But did he stop? No. With as much pride as he could muster, he held up his chin and walked all the way to the palace. This tale is playful, but it holds a quiet truth. Sometimes we are afraid to speak up, even when something is clearly wrong. We go along with the crowd. We pretend. We nod, but wisdom is not in pretending. Wisdom is in honesty. That little girl, she was the wisest of them all. Not because she knew big words or wore a crown, but because she spoke the truth without fear. So tonight, as you close your eyes, remember, always trust your inner voice. Whether it whispers or shouts, it deserves to be heard, and sometimes even emperors need to be reminded. The truth walks bolder than gold-threaded robes. Thumbelina. Once upon a time, in a quiet corner of a sun-dappled garden, a woman longed for a child. Every morning she watered her flowers and whispered wishes to the breeze. One day a kind forest witch heard her gentle wish. She gave the woman a single seed, small, golden, and glowing. "Plant this in a flower pot," the witch said. "And wait," the woman did as told. She pressed the seed into the earth and placed it by the window. Days passed, then one morning the flower pot burst into bloom. A tulip of deep red opened its petals, and inside, sitting on a golden pistil, was the tiniest girl the woman had ever seen. She was no bigger than a thumb, and so she named her Thumbelina. Thumbelina lived in a walnut shell cradle lined with petals. She drank dew from rose leaves and danced on lily pads in a bowl of water. Her voice was as soft as the wind, her laughter as light as chimes. But one night, as she slept beneath a rose-petal blanket, a large, warty toad crept in through the window. "A perfect bride for my son," he croaked. Before morning, he snatched Thumbelina and carried her deep into the marsh, placing her on a lily pad in the middle of a muddy pond. Thumbelina woke with a start. She was surrounded by water. "Frogs and unfamiliar buzzing. I want to go home," she whispered, but there was no one to hear. Thankfully, not all creatures were cruel. A friendly fish heard her soft cries. With a flip of its tail, it gnawed the stem of the lily pad until it floated free. "Thank you," she whispered as she drifted down the stream. As she floated, dragonflies buzzed above her head. The sun sparkled on the water. Her fears slowly melted, replaced by wonder. But peace was short-lived. A proud beetle, shining green and brown, swooped down and scooped her up. "You're strange," he said. "Not enough legs." "No wings?" He brought her to the Beetle Society, where they all stared. "She's not pretty," one beetle muttered. "She's odd," said another. Feeling ashamed, the beetle let her go. "Go back to where you came from." So Thumbelina wandered alone once more, through wild grasses and tall reeds, sleeping under leaves and drinking from rain puddles. Then came winter. The frost crept in. The flowers withered. The winds grew sharp. Thumbelina shivered beneath a dry leaf, barely able to move. That's when she was found by a field mouse, kind and chatty. The mouse welcomed Thumbelina into her burrow and fed her seeds and berries. "You must marry my neighbor," the mouse said. "He's wealthy and warm, a fine match." Her neighbor was a mole, blind and rich, who disliked the sun and detested anything that sang or sparkled. Still, he was polite, and soon a wedding was arranged. Thumbelina was heartbroken. "I don't belong underground," she whispered to herself. "I belong with the flowers." The light. One day, deep in the tunnels, Thumbelina found a still, cold swallow lying on the floor. "He's dead," said the mole. "Leave him," but Thumbelina placed her hand on his chest. He was warm, alive. She nursed him with care, singing songs, wrapping him in petals, until the bird opened his eyes. "You saved me," he whispered. When spring came, the swallow prepared to fly to faraway lands. "Come with me," he said. "There's a land of flowers where the sun never sets." But Thumbelina shook her head. "The mouse has been kind. I can't leave." The swallow flew off, and Thumbelina, with a heavy heart, prepared for her wedding to the mole. The day of the wedding came. The underground halls were decorated with roots and stones. No sunlight, no breeze, no song. As Thumbelina stood at the entrance of the tunnel, her heart ached. "I cannot do this." Just then, a flutter of wings filled the air. The swallow returned. "Come with me now," he said. Thumbelina didn't hesitate. She climbed onto his back, and together they soared above the trees, over the rivers, past mountains, until the air grew warm and the sky turned golden. They arrived in a land of endless flowers, red, blue, pink, yellow, each with petals as large as Thumbelina's whole body. The swallow placed her on a glowing white blossom, and to her surprise, someone stepped out from inside it. He was her size. "A prince with wings like sunlight and a crown made of petals, welcome," he said. "Will you stay with us?" Thumbelina's heart bloomed like the flower beneath her feet. "Yes," she whispered. They were soon married, and Thumbelina was given a new name, Maya, which means bright one in the language of flowers. And so, the tiny girl who had been carried by toads judged by beetles and nearly buried in tunnels, finally found a home where she could be herself, among sunbeams, blossoms, and songs. Thumbelina's story is a gentle reminder even the smallest among us can carry the strongest heart. She never shouted, never fought, never hurt. She simply stayed kind through fear, loneliness, and cold. When life feels overwhelming, remember Thumbelina. When others try to dim your light, remember Thumbelina. She may have been no bigger than a thumb, but her courage, her kindness, and her quiet refusal to give up, those made her a giant in spirit. So tonight, rest with this thought: no matter how small you feel, you belong in a world full of color, warmth, and light. You just have to keep journeying toward it. A moment of stillness. You've been traveling through the magical threads of imagination, soft winds, icy kingdoms, glowing lanterns, and timeless hearts. Maybe your breath has slowed, your eyelids have grown a little heavier, or your thoughts have begun to wander into your own dreamscape. Let's take a short pause together. Close your eyes gently. If they aren't already, take a slow, deep breath in. And breathe out. Just as slowly, once more, inhale peace. And exhale the day. You've just listened to stories that were more than fairy tales. They were windows into courage, kindness, imagination, and truth. Do you remember the tiny match girl who lit the night with her hope? Or Gerda, who crossed frozen lands to warm her friend's heart? Perhaps you smiled as the emperor walked proudly in nothing at all, or followed Thumbelina through the grasses to a kingdom of light. Each story holds a quiet message, a lantern for your path, whether you're still awake or already dreaming. Now, as we prepare to journey onward, let soft music play in your mind, something like gentle harps, wind through trees, or a lullaby hummed by stars. Imagine lying under a sky filled with shimmering lights, the air cool and kind, the earth soft beneath you. Feel your body resting. Feel your thoughts floating. You are safe, you are calm, and you are ready for the next chapter of dreams. When you're ready, we'll drift once more into the world of stories, where flowers whisper secrets, stars fall asleep, and wishes ride on the backs of birds. Take one more deep breath in and out. Let's continue, slowly and gently, into the next tale. Take a soft breath in and let it out slowly. Now, let's take a gentle moment to look back at the magical paths we've already walked together, like footprints in stardust. We began with The Little Match Girl, a tale of quiet bravery. In the coldest hour of the year, a single flame lit the way to warmth, love, and peace. Her matches didn't just light the night. They reminded us that hope lives in even the smallest spark. Then came The Little Clockmaker and the Sleepy Stars, where time paused long enough for a child to teach the stars how to rest. It was a story of stillness, of listening to silence, and remembering that even the brightest things need gentle care. In The Silver Fish and the Lantern of Wishes, we swam through underwater realms where light was rare, but kindness glowed like treasure. The tale reminded us that sometimes the most powerful wishes aren't for ourselves, but for others. And who could forget the princess who painted dreams? In that kingdom, dreams took shape with every brushstroke. We learned that imagination, when shared with love, can transform not just canvas, but entire hearts. Just now, we followed Thumbelina, our tiniest, bravest traveler, as she journeyed across ponds, petals, tunnels, and skies, guided by kindness and lifted by love. Her world was full of towering obstacles, but her heart was always larger than her size. Each story has carried with it a whisper of wonder, a thread of magic woven gently through the fabric of your evening, and now we're only halfway. Through ahead lie new realms, different skies, voices you haven't heard yet. Some stories may feel familiar, like a lullaby from long ago. Others may surprise you with strange creatures or glowing gardens that only bloom under moonlight. Wherever we go next, all you need to do is breathe, listen, and follow. Let your mind rest. Let your spirit drift. The next tale is waiting, soft and shimmering, just beyond the edge of your next dream. Shall we? Once upon a time, beyond the hills where twilight lingered longer than the day, there was a place spoken of only in lullabies, the night garden. The night garden did not bloom under the sun. It awoke only beneath the silver touch of the moon, and when it bloomed, its flowers whispered, not with voices of their own, but with the dreams and hopes of the people who had once planted them. The villagers nearby did not believe the garden existed. A tale for children, they said. Nothing but fancy. But one young girl, Alara, believed. Alara was small and quiet, often overlooked in her bustling village. Yet her heart was curious and her mind filled with questions. Each night she would sit at her window whispering to the stars, "If there is a garden where dreams live, may I find it one day." One evening, as fireflies danced in the dusk, a moth with silver wings landed on her sill. It pulsed with soft light as though carrying a message. Without thinking, Alara followed it, through fields, across a brook, into the shadows of the forest. The path was long. Crickets sang, owls watched, and the air grew cooler. Finally, the moth disappeared into the mist. Alara stepped forward and found herself in a valley unlike any she had seen. The earth glowed. Flowers of every shape and color shimmered under moonlight. Their petals trembled, and from them came whispers, gentle, hushed, like secrets carried on the breeze. She had found it. Alara knelt beside a blossom shaped like a bell. When she leaned closer, it whispered, "Once, I belonged to a child who dreamed of painting stars across the sky." She moved to another flower, a soft white bloom. "I was planted by a grandmother who wished her family would always stay close. Each flower carried someone's dream, sometimes tender, sometimes sorrowful, sometimes bright as laughter." Alara walked deeper, listening. She felt the dreams weaving around her, wrapping her in comfort. For the first time, she did not feel small. She felt part of something vast and beautiful. At the center of the garden stood a tree with silver bark and blossoms that glowed faintly blue. Beneath it sat a figure cloaked in petals. "This was the keeper of the garden. Why have you come, child?" the keeper asked softly, her voice like the rustle of leaves. "I wanted to know if dreams can last," Alara whispered. "If they can stay alive even when people forget them," the keeper smiled. "Dreams never die. They take root. They bloom here. And when someone listens like you, they awaken again." The keeper offered Alara a seed glowing faintly. "Plant this." "A dream of your own." Alara closed her eyes. She thought of her village, busy, noisy, and tired. She thought of the children who never looked at the stars, of the elders who longed for peace. Her dream was simple. May everyone find rest when they need it. May everyone feel safe. She pressed the seed into the glowing soil. At once a flower bloomed, soft lavender with petals that hummed like a lullaby, and from it came a whisper, "I am the dream of peace." The keeper touched her shoulder. "Now you may go. But remember, the garden lives within you. Carry its peace wherever you walk." Alara left the valley as dawn broke. The flowers dimmed, folding back into shadow. But she carried their whispers in her heart. When she returned to her village, she no longer felt invisible. She spoke gently to those who hurried, smiled at those who sighed, and told the children stories of flowers that bloom in the night, and though most laughed, some listened, and those who listened began to dream again. And now, dear listener, we have reached the end of our journey. Together we have walked with a little match girl who lit the night with her courage. We have followed Gerda into icy realms, reminding us that love can thaw the coldest heart. We have laughed at emperors and their invisible robes, and we have flown on the back of a swallow with Thumbelina into a kingdom of blossoms. And finally, we have stepped into the night garden, where dreams bloom and whisper their secrets to those who care to listen. What thread runs through them all? That even in the smallest spark, the tiniest voice, or the quietest dream, there lies a power greater than any crown or kingdom. Now it is time for you, too, to rest. Close your eyes. Let the whispers of the flowers drift around you. Let the warmth of every story we've shared tonight settle like a blanket across your heart. Remember, you carry your own garden within you. Your dreams, your hopes, your wishes, they bloom in ways you may not see, but they are alive. So tonight, as sleep finds you, may these fairy tales stay with you. May they comfort you, guide you, and remind you that you are never alone in your journey. Breathe in. Slowly breathe out. Gently, you are safe. You are warm, and now that we have journeyed through these magical realms, it is time for you to rest and dream. Good night, dear dreamer. May peace surround you as you drift into slumber. And so, dear listener, we have reached the end of our journey together tonight. We've wandered through snowy streets with the little match girl, soared across icy kingdoms with Gerda, laughed at emperors in invisible robes, and followed Thumbelina into lands where even the smallest voices shine. We ended in the night garden, where dreams themselves bloomed like flowers, whispering promises of hope and peace. Each story held a lesson, soft as a lullaby, reminders of courage, kindness, imagination, and truth. Perhaps one story lingered with you more than another. Perhaps an image, a glowing lantern, a painted dream, or a whispering flower will follow you into your sleep. Let it. Stories are seeds, and when carried into our dreams, they grow into comfort, strength, and wonder. Now it is your turn to rest. Feel the weight of the day drift away like snow melting in spring. Take a slow, deep breath in, and breathe out, letting your body soften, your thoughts grow still. You are safe. You are warm, and you are ready to drift into a world of your own stories, waiting to be told beneath the stars. Thank you for joining me on this magical journey through fairy tales. Now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let your dreams carry you to new and wonderful worlds. Good night, dreamer. May peace and enchantment be with you until the morning light.